Full tier list on all the wild heroes. We've been working on this all week on our live streams. We've got so much information, so many teams, not every single, a lot of artifacts tested so that if you have a hero in your roster that's wild and you want to do well against the Vortex boss, or you want to do well against chief challenges or the in-game boss, the things that really matter to get you points for the end of the season, to get you all those rewards, this is going to help us out. We're going to do this for every single element out there. Tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming and making wild teams for the hardest Vortex boss. So we're going to take all this information that we learned, best artifacts, best gear, best hero compositions, and we're going to take them all into Vortex 4 and see who does the most damage. So then we'll have a Vortex tier list as well, because some of these heroes are pretty nice, but they only work well with certain other wild heroes. So I'm briefly going to talk to you about what these heroes can do, and then we'll go over to the detailed analytical tier list that we made with all the numbers. Starting out with Flora, the absolute #1 hardest hitting wild person, really low rate to summon her. Now on paper, because I've never played her before until all today for 2 hours, which that video will be up right after this video, it looks like she'd do damage whenever anybody else wild procs. This damage here can crit, and then she'll do damage here, and that can crit as well, and then her ultimate can crit hit. But then she has derivative damage. Derivative damage cannot crit. We want high attack for derivative damage. We want high enlightenment. Somewhere around 400 enlightenment's really nice for derivative damage. Now, the way this reads is you would think that maybe it's if a wild hero wild procs while this is active. For 10 seconds while this is active, if any wild hero wild procs. It's not how it works at all. If any wild hero does any damage whatsoever during 10 seconds, she's going to do this derivative damage proc. That means that somebody like Erich that hits 5 times on his ultimate, plus he does 5 other little micro hits with additional damage, that will be 10 full hits, which means this will proc 10 times. There's also other wild heroes that proc additional times. We also found out Netta has a battle skill that only does like 1 notation of damage, but when it hits a target, there's multiple hits there that proc this multiple times. I don't know why. I guess it could be old coding maybe, but this lady, all you need with Flora, doesn't matter if your hero's wild proc or not. All you need them to do is just be a wild hero and hit multiple times. Somebody like Total Nan, who hits 5 times on her ultimate and then 3 times on her battle skill, plus her basic attacks going in there. All those hits will proc this. So with Flora, Erich, Total Nan are probably 2 of the best ones out there. We've done some good work with Felicity as well, especially Felicity with Alfie, but then we're bringing in Alfie, and Alfie doesn't do a lot of hits. You'll see all those numbers shortly. So just keep in mind, with her, you go full enlightenment, which we'll see tomorrow when we do our team comps. And if you watch that stream that I did today for 2 hours, it was all about Flora. All the gear, all the different artifacts we tried with her, and so many different team comps, which again are on this sheet I'm about to show you. And that document will be down below, so you can always pull it up and see all the different teams, because right after Wild, I want to go into one of the other damage elements and do every single one of those. And I'm hoping next season, they'll add some more wild heroes. They'll add some more burn heroes, some more frost blast and ice blast and frost heroes. I'm hoping they'll add to what we have right now so we can make some really cool, interesting teams with some really neat new heroes. I really hope they just add to it. We do not need another damage element type. So Flora, yes, #1. And when we put Flora's exclusive artifact on, it blew us away. Wait till you see the numbers with Flora using every kind of other artifact and then using her exclusive. Because normally when I put an exclusive on, sometimes I can use another legendary artifact and get similar damage. Maybe not as much, but not much less. With Flora's exclusive, it's crazy. So we've got Erich. Everybody gets Erich for free. This is the additional damage I'm talking about. Whenever we wild proc here, we get this additional little micro damage. This counts as an additional hit. So that would be 5 hits from his attacks here. And then if he gets these additional hits, which he will, because eventually he'll beat a 100% chance to wild proc, he'll get all these as well, which will be a lot of hits for Flora. So using Erich and Flora together are one of the best combos in the game. Felicity, she has a 50% chance to hit here 3 full times. She has to hit 50, 50, and then she'll hit 3 times with this battle skill. We've used her with Alfie a lot with really good success because Alfie gives you 50% additional chance to wild proc, so she's always hitting 3 times with this. And of course, she does really well with the statue, which increases your battle skill damage. And then we've got this ability here, and she's got good leader skill, right? Felicity has a really good leader skill for critical damage. Rash. This guy is garbage. You're going to see on the damage numbers that he does a little bit more damage if we put him in full auto compared to Erich, but it's only because he's getting a 20% increase in his ultimate. If he didn't have this 20% increase in ultimate and you're trying to line him up with everybody else, say on 20 seconds, so you can get Witch's Remains, decrease defense, him fire off after that, so you're going to cap him at like 20 seconds, he does the same amount of damage as Erich. He's just not really viable. Since he does a 20% recharge here whenever he does do this, if we could guarantee it, that he'll always get this 20%, that would put him from 20 seconds to 18 seconds, and if we can line everybody up to 18 seconds, then he would not need skill haste, and then he'd be a little bit better. But honestly, everything I've done with this guy since I've had him on my account too every season, and I've always tried to work him in, it has just been disappointing. So he needs a buff. Like, this guy really needs a buff. Casper, I'm in love with Casper because he's really unique. I don't have him on my main account. I wish I did, but this battle skill hits really hard, ignores defense. This is really cool too because anytime you wild proc, it's nowhere near as good as Flora. Flora just needs a wild hero just to do any kind of damage. This guy has to have somebody, or even himself, wild proc during 15 seconds for him to throw these additional daggers. So a little harder to play, but with the correct team, we can get some really good damage with him. Without the right team, just normal heroes put in there that aren't wild procking that often, kind of like just the basic run-of-the-mill ones, this guy is bad. Like, he's just not that great. But he does have potential to be much better, especially over time if we get new wild heroes on our roster, right? From season to season, if we get new wild heroes. Total Dan, she just does so much damage. She gets 20% additional chance to crit all the time. She gets 100% additional critical damage. And you know, she's a beast. 5 hits on that ultimate, like I talked about earlier. 3 hits on her battle skill, plus she gives herself buffs. She does really well with Flora, with Erich. Those are probably the top teams you're going to see: Flora, Erich, and Total Nan together. Total Nan with Witcher's Remains, so that we can get that up with 5 hits. And then we just go to town with all those additional hits for Flora during that 10 seconds on her ultimate to do insane damage. Casper, I had to bring in somebody like Felicity along with Alfie. Alfie has a special ability to increase your wild proc chance by 50%. Wild proc normal chance is 30%, so he increases most people up to an 80% chance to wild proc. Wild proc only gives you 20% additional damage. Some heroes have additional things to where, you know, he'll get this damage, or where Felicity will hit multiple times on her battle skill, or this girl right here, Foley, will hit 3 times on her ultimate, but she's only got an 80% chance to do that. So a little bit harder to play than Felicity, but honestly, these two together, you're going to see some good results, and we're going to try that out tomorrow on all the teams we make for the Vortex boss. Karamon just wasn't doing it. He's for PvP, right? Strictly for PvP, but I do love Karamon. He's a great hero. Netta, Thea, and Bronwyn all are very comparable in the damage they'll do. You'll see that on the sheet, but they do function a little differently. Netta, if we want to get wild procs done, only single target hits though. We've got an additional 60% chance to wild proc with her and her abilities. Thea has a 3-hit ultimate, so we could get up Witch's Remains, or we could use the lower version. I can't remember right now. The Crown, to get up decreased defense with her with those 3 hits. And Bronwyn, whenever anybody wild procs, he gives additional damage to his next basic attack. So you need, for Bronwyn to even be decent, you need people on your team that are going to wild proc a lot, which means somebody like her who will 3 times wild proc on her ultimate, or Felicity who will 3 times wild proc on her battle skill is even better to enhance his damage. But even doing that, we're only bringing his damage up to somebody like Alfie's damage. But he is a rare, and this might be, again, I don't know what you have on your roster. You might not have all these heroes. I don't have Casper, I don't have Felicity, and I don't have Flora on my main account. So I'm missing some of the good ones. Of course, I have the epics and rares. All right, let's get over to the sheet so we can see all these numbers. This sheet is down below so you can pull it up as well. We're doing it on 1 target dummy. We're using the same gear on every single hero. It's a 100% chance to crit on that gear. The only hero we're using different gear on is Flora, because Flora needs enlightenment. So what I did with that gear is I just removed the chest piece that had attack percentage. I put enlightenment. I removed the left side rune that had critical damage. I put enlightenment, and I still didn't even go around and try to get enlightenment where we had crit rate. That would have been the best thing to do. Flora can still crit, but it's better to have Enlightenment. We've got Casper teeing off with Alfie and Felicity. Alfie does that thing on the ground, so we get a 50% additional chance to wild proc. All we need is 38 additional skill haste on Alfie. We can do that with our Emperor set, which will give us 20. And then we use the 2 runes down at the bottom to get that additional 18 more that we need. So really easy to have 100% uptime on Alfie to make sure that your whole team will always have 50% chance to wild proc. Always up. Plus, Alfie gives himself an additional 100 attacks, so he's not bad on his own. We'll get down to him in a minute. So we've got Alfie and Felicity with Casper. We had Casper going with the gear. Felicity would be in there doing her ultimate after Casper does his ultimate. No, her battle skill. After Casper does his ultimate. And we try to get her to do her battle skill 2 times, but it wasn't really registering properly. We weren't getting as much damage as I thought we could get, but you can see with the eyeball, 3.1 million. That's pretty damn good compared to anybody else, but that's only with a specific team. If we bring in Erich and Netta, we're only getting 1.9 million. That's a lot different. We're only running these guys for 3 minutes on the target dummy, all with the same gear, except for Flora. That's a big loss in damage because Erich and Netta are not doing a lot of wild procs during that 15 seconds that Casper has his ultimate up. We need wild procs done. So then we come in with Foley and Alfie, and we bring it back up. About the same number is Alfie and Felicity, because we're getting those 3 additional hits. There is a little variation because we're looking at wild procs too. Once we go into something like Ice Blast and we have a 100% chance to crit, we will always have the same number every single time. But when I run these guys through in 3 minutes, we're going to have a little variation depending on how often they wild proc, even with Alfie there, because this only brings Foley up to an 80% chance to wild proc on her ultimate. Still, really good damage for Alfie, Foley, and Casper. So I'm excited to play that team and this Alfie Felicity team on the Vortex boss with 2 support and see how well they can do. Obviously, it's not going to do anywhere near the damage that Flora does, but Flora is an exclusive, and not a lot of people have her. If you do have her, I hope you get another copy of her, because we're going to show you the damage she does with that exclusive artifact, and it's nuts. Then we've got Casper down here with Felicity and Foley together, which they have a chance to do a lot of hits, but without Alfie there increasing that 50% more, they don't do enough wild procs. Without Alfie, it says right there, not enough wild procs, and we're down to the same damage that Erich and Netta does with Casper on the team. So we need a very specific team. We need people that can wild proc a lot when his ultimate is active. Then we come down here to Felicity. We got her with Alfie and Casper, but we've got her with the gear on, and she's doing 2.2 million with eyeball. And then you can see the rest, right? You can see where statue comes in there and does more damage because we're relying on her battle skill to do a lot of damage. A lot of these wild heroes, their battle skill with the statue on will do more damage, or almost exactly the same damage as having the eyeball. They have very strong battle skills. Of course, we got a 100% chance to crit. So with Horseshoe, we're picking up more damage. And then with the Scarlet Ring, we're really picking up damage. But don't pay too much attention to the Flame Tongue stats. We're already at 100% chance to crit. Flame Tongue gives us 40 additional crit rate. Scarlet Ring gives us critical damage. So I would have had to have changed my gear completely to make it to where we could use Flame Tongue. We'd have to take away 40 crit. We're getting that from Flame Tongue, and then we would bring in either attack or critical damage to compensate for that. All I can tell you is when I did do some other testing with Flame Tongue is just as good as Scarlet Ring. Obviously, if you're going to have high crit rate, yes, go Scarlet Ring. If you don't want to worry about having to have high crit rate, then go Flame Tongue, because it gives you 40 crit rate. That's insane. Then you can build all heroes really easy, get 100% chance to crit, and there you go. You got Flame Tongue. So I do think Flame Tongue probably is easier to build around. You don't have to worry about crit rate as much. So that was Felicity. Then we've got Erich. So now Erich with Total Nananthea, you can see Erich's damage here. And then if we run down to Rash, Erich is right here. And then if we go down to Rash, which is here, you can see that Rash normally on full auto is doing that damage, more damage than he is, right? What we talked about earlier. But when I cap him at 20 seconds, he is then doing the same amount of damage as Erich. But Erich has more going on for him. 5 hits on his ultimate. He's got 50% additional damage whenever you hit a single target on his battle skill. He's got that micro hit that's really nice to have, and he is free. And just overall, he just really seems to be a better hero than this guy. Even though this guy on full auto, because he gets 20% additional ultimate increase once he does his ultimate, will do more damage over time, but not really, because we need to sync him with our person doing decreased defense. And once we sync him up with that person, then he's not really utilizing that additional ultimate gauge necessarily, and he's doing kind of the same damage as Erich. Total Nan is coming in and doing a lot of damage. I didn't take away that 100%. We're at 100% crit rate. I didn't take that down to 90 and give her more attack, more critical damage. I didn't want to mess with the gear. So we got really good numbers with her, and you know, she's extremely, extremely powerful. On a single target tier list, she's going to be extremely high. She's great. Total Nan is a beast. If you have her, use her. Alfie's bringing in good numbers considering Alfie ultimate does no damage and it buffs everybody to have a 50% chance higher to wild proc. That's really good. And I love it that he's at 1.5 million for damage, and you look at everybody else's damage because this guy is really enabling your team to do better. So you could have Alfie with a pipe organ on. It's a legendary artifact that increases anybody ranged, increases their attack by 10% of his attack. And he gives himself 100% additional attack over time, which he keeps permanently. So with pipe organ, that would get everybody that's ranged 10% additional attack. He's doing more damage, and then they're all doing more damage. And then you have Total Nan with Witch's Remains, and you've got somebody else in there as a ranged hard hitter. You can even have then Erich in there as your ranged hard hitter. And I think that's going to be a really fun team, and we'll do that tomorrow on the Vortex boss with all the other teams. Then we've got Foley. We played Foley with Erich and Alfie to make sure that she could have a higher chance to do 3 hits on her ultimate, and she does 1.5. So without that higher chance to do hits on her ultimate, it drops down quite a lot. With Erich and Total Nan and Foley there, she's got a 30% chance to hit an additional time on her ultimate. Her ultimate doesn't hit very hard. It's got like a low number, so it needs to hit multiple times. And you can tell when it doesn't, then we're down to 1 million. So she's not worth playing unless you're going to play Alfie. Just absolutely not worth playing. And she's an epic. Then we've got Thea that's a rare. We've got Netta that's a rare. Karamon the epic. And then Bronwyn. You can see right here, Thea's pulling in 1.5, which is really good with the rare. She has 3 hits on her ultimate, so we could get up Witch's Remains easier or the crown easier. And then with the statue, she's doing the same amount of damage. So either one you want to put her in is fine. She's doing really good damage for a rare. Netta, a little bit less damage, but she's got a 60% additional chance to wild proc. So you could bring in Netta there at 1.3. And then we've got Bronwyn. Bronwyn is at 1.3, pretty much like the rest, and only goes up to 1.5 if you bring people in who are going to wild proc a lot, because then when you wild proc, his basic attack gets an increase in damage. It's a big increase in damage, so I brought in Felicity with Alfie, who's going to 100% wild proc. She will Felicity on her battle skill, so she's going to do 3 wild procs back-to-back every 10 seconds, which would make Bronwyn hit really hard. Plus, any other wild procs the whole entire team does, Bronwyn included, is going to make his next basic attack hit harder, but he still didn't go up past 1.5. If he did go up past that, I would have been like, man, this rare is going to be really cool if we can get more people in here to wild proc. So maybe in the future, we'll get some kind of new wild hero that does like 10 hits, wild procs and on 10 hits. I don't know, something crazy. Then we can go back and try it out and experiment with him. All right, here we are with Flora. Flora is a whole different beast. So again, I changed her gear from attack percentage chest to enlightenment and the critical damage rune to enlightenment. Didn't mess with anything else. So we were really at low enlightenment, maybe 200 enlightenment. We should have been at 400 enlightenment. So any number you see here and you're like, okay, I'm comparing that to Casper with this team. You're like, oh, maybe Casper can do what she can do. Negative. He cannot. He cannot do what she can do, but we're going to test it tomorrow, because tomorrow when we test in the Vortex, we're putting them in full gear. We're not worried about is Casper's gear comparable to her gear. They're going to be comparable because they're going to be the best of the best. The most enlightenment we can get, the most attack and critical damage we can get on Casper, they're going to have what they need. They're going to both have Emperor set on, so it's going to work out beautifully to see what kind of damage those teams will do. But I don't think Casper is going to even touch Flora. I'm hoping he can. Like, that's my hope, is he can. If Flora doesn't have her exclusive artifact, I'm hoping he can, which would be really cool for anybody out there who has Casper. But anytime I tested Flora with any of these teams, here we go. Alfie, Felicity, Alfie, Casper, they're the numbers I got with Eyeball. Now I came down here and just put her with Total Nan and Erich. That's what you're going to see for most teams. Look at this. Pearl Necklace is her exclusive artifact. 7.7 million. Look at all these other artifacts. We didn't change gear at all. Same exact gear that Flora has on. Then we come over here and we have the Eyeball on. 3.3 million with the same exact team. Ink is not good on her because you're not able to crit. It gives you 20% additional derivative damage, and that will take effect when she's doing her ultimate, but only for that derivative damage. All her other hits can't crit. Eyeball is so much better. Eyeball gives her 20% additional damage during her whole ultimate. So we get that 20% that the Ink does. Plus, anytime she does crit, even if she has a 10% chance to crit, we're at least able to crit with Eyeball on. 100% would always play Eyeball with Flora over any other epic artifact. There are other, Flame Tongue and Queen's Fan and all the pipe organ that we tried here. You could use those, sure, but look at Eyeball compared to Scarlet Ring, Flame Tongue, Queen's Fan, and even pipe organ. Eyeball is a beast on Flora. Now, there is a change for a lot of other people up here, but for Flora, because we need that 20% damage for whenever she's doing the majority of her damage, is all during her ultimate. During that 10 seconds of her ultimate is really all of Flora's damage because that's all we want. Multiple hits when she's doing that, and we all want that derivative damage with high enlightenment, high attack. So that's why the Eyeball works so damn well. And the rest of this just kind of, it's all right. And then we come down to, I couldn't believe it. When we were on stream today, everybody who said that they had Flora was like, man, I can't wait to pull an additional copy of her because all we did was, replace the artifacts. And then we replaced this artifact for her, the Pearl Necklace. And it goes from 3 million to 7.7 million. That's nuts because I've used a lot of newer heroes. We've gone and used Azul, and we used his artifact exclusive. And then we went and tested a lot of other artifacts. Even like the Horseshoe was pulling in some close damage to his exclusive. And then lately we tried out Lothair. We did the whole gambit with Lothair on how to play him, do well, and we used all the artifacts on Lothair. And his exclusive artifact compared to one of the other poison artifacts is maybe a million difference over 5 minutes. So it wasn't much difference at all. You could actually, with an additional copy of Lothair, put it into his inspiration and then go get that other artifact, a poison artifact, and not have to worry about getting his exclusive. But for her, it is wild. So here's the tier list so far. We're going to do the teams tomorrow on the Vortex boss on stream, and I'll make a short video like this one, even though I don't know how short this video is. It's pretty long. I'll do a video like this so you don't have to watch the 2-hour live stream. And then we'll do this in a hierarchy. We'll get it better situated in a hierarchy so you can see who's really pulling in the most damage. And we'll have some more information from tomorrow's testing to be able to do that with, right? All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this helps you out. Basically, again, you come over here and you look and you say, all right, I have this hero, and this hero. I want to try them out on the Vortex. I want to try them out on the Chief Challenges to get as much damage as possible, or the in-game boss, because those are all things that really matter toward getting us a free legendary hero in the middle of the season or getting us much better rewards for the end of the season. This is pretty big. And if we do this for every single element type, obviously single target damage here, but we're going to have to do single target damage and AoE damage for a lot of the other, for almost all the other damage types out there. We're going to have to do some AoE testing as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Appreciate your time, love, and support. I will see you all in a video soon.